Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome again to another episode here with Edgar. And today I have Justin Barber. Hey, man, thanks again. We had a little bit of hiccups here at the start, but thanks for bearing with me, man. Trying new technology here as the recording, but we had to hop from one, you know, RE stream to StreamYard.
No problem, man. Hey, what it's all about. Got to pivot, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother, man.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm excited to have you, Justin. Justin Barber. He's one of our members in our community with, I think, Gator, and you're also is in sub
Ends up
two
to,
as well, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we met back a few months ago here in Atlanta. We
Hmm.
had a private money lending mastermind, and with Abraham Gray and Alexis Morgan. Big shout out to them. Hello.
Yes. Yes. Thank you,
Yeah.
Alex.
So
Abraham.
yeah, it was great. It was huge takeaways that I took from that as far as securities and stuff like that. And that's what we're going to dive into today a little bit as
Yeah.
far as your journey through the private money lending space. And I'm curious if that's where you started your real estate journey. So how about
Yeah.
we start there? Like, what was your
Sure.
real estate journey like uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Justin?
Yeah. In a nutshell, I've been a nurse for 14 years. Uh, Dealt with a lot of, I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit trail with like the burnout and things like that with the medical industry. But suffice to say that, I got kind of had this desire to shift gears and get into something that was going to generate a little bit more um, wealth trajectory for me and my family, and
Mm,
started digging into real estate. Really didn't know what to get into. But there was a door that kind of opened up with me. My hospital was merged so many times that they finally got rid of one of the retirement accounts, and they were like, here's how you roll it over and keep it trapped inside of our company. I was like, no, I'm
mm,
good, thanks. And so I around around that time actually ran across a live Zoom with Pace, and he had Greg Herline from Horizon Trust on, and they talked about how you roll things over into a self-directed 401k. And I was like, that sounds like the right thing for me. I don't know what to do with it yet, but that
mm.
sounds like the right thing because I want control. And so um, just kind of started digging into it, and it was actually in 2023, early 2023. I was just really desperate. I wanted to get involved in something real estate, but I didn't know where to go. And I actually flew all the way out to Denver, Colorado for a meetup, just for a
Oh,
meetup.
wow.
It was a Bigger Pockets meetup, and there were a ton of people there. There were a bunch of people that I've been following for a long time. Dave Green, Jamil Demji was there, a bunch of the Airbnb, short-term rental folks. Rob, I can never say his last name, but
Was that
um,
when you were already in sub two or prior to sub
no,
two?
I wasn't in any community yet. I
Ah,
was just
okay.
like, I gotta go find some answers. So I went there and ended up actually talking with Jamil Demji for quite a long time. And the nation's biggest wholesaler didn't try and convince me to become a wholesaler, and that stood out to me. He was listening
Mm.
to me, and he knew what I had available to me, and he understood a little bit about what I was looking for, what I wanted out of this journey. Wholesaling was definitely not it. I knew that at that point, and he gave me some ideas for what I could do. And he was like, you ought to get into private money lending. So you can make a lot more money than the
Wow.
stock market. And he's like, but you need a community to do that. So
Mm.
he's like, you got to pick a community. You got to be wise with it because there's a lot of places out there that offer
Sure.
communities that aren't really communities. And he's like, doesn't really matter which community you pick. He's like, I'm not going to try and sell you on mine or anybody's or anything. He's like, just pick one though. You need people around you. And so I ultimately made the decision to join Gator because it seemed to be the closest thing to private money lending in this you know kind of journey. So I was like, all right, we'll jump into Gator. I actually put it on hold for a few months, believe
Mm.
that, because I thought I had an Airbnb and I was like, oh, this will be a great way to go. And I'll learn the PML thing down the road. The Airbnb ended up being a complete wash. It was a
Oh,
complete waste
wow.
of my time. And in August of last year, I ended up just really diving into this private money lending thing. I
Hmm.
needed to understand it, and I started networking like crazy. I took Pace's suggestion to heart. He said, you need to start a podcast. Anybody who can do that, just start a podcast. It'll reap rewards. It's like, okay, I didn't really plan on doing that. I also don't feel like I have anything to offer, anything to say to this community. There's people way smarter than me that should be doing podcasts, but I'll give it a shot. So I started my podcast, and the networking and the podcast just helped exponentially expose me to the right kind of people, expose me to the ideas that I was looking for, and kind of get me into the right network where I had the opportunity to learn and grow, and just like have some of that exponential growth. So I got around people like Abraham and Alexis, Cheyenne Prakash down there in Texas, and also my business partner Eric Fuller and I. And I was able to figure out how to kind of dabble into it. I really wanted to be careful. I wanted to be safe. I realized really early on that there were a lot of deals in Gator that weren't safe. They were structured improperly. They were over leveraged. They were pretty much a 100% chance of failure unless you had some borrower with really great integrity and was just going to figure out a way to pay you back. But the odds of that were pretty low. So I knew that I needed to shift away from what I was seeing as sort of the standard deal in Gator and find out who was structuring things appropriately. So to start out, my first bigger opportunity, I invested some money into Alexis Morgan's fund.
Nice.
That was my first decision in private money lending. And that was a great decision because it gave me a lot of exposure to them, to their deals, to their structure, understanding a lot of how they're underwriting and stuff like that, even without having to pay more, to learn more. It was a great opportunity to connect with them. So anybody who's unsure, I would recommend that. Find somebody like, Alexis and Abraham and start investing with them. There's a lot of opportunities to do that. And then, continue to grow, went to their private money lending mastermind, did a couple more deals. And then ultimately, it was in, I think, March, Eric Fuller came to me and asked me to consider the possibility of maybe being business partners. And we vetted that for a while and did kind of our launch in June. And now we've got, kind of the collective experience between the two of us. He's definitely got more experience than me, but collectively done millions of dollars worth of deals. And now our focus is we're both asset-based private money lenders that provide fast, flexible cash infusions to people who need urgent cash. That's really the niche we're focused on. So we don't really focus on the traditional, just sort of the routine hard money lending for fixed books and things like that. We're really focused on people who need cash and they need it very quickly, which is, maybe a little bit more risky than some, but our criteria is strict enough that we're really getting into very secure deals that ultimately give you a high yield and a high level of security, kind of the best of both worlds, and breaks the odds of the universe.
Wow. I love that journey, brother. Just from you having that conversation with Jamil Danji about wholesaling, right? And to your point, Jamil is one of those, if y'all don't know who Jamil is, he owns Keegley, right? And that's a huge wholesaling operation. And initially, when a lot of people want to get into real estate, that is one of the avenues, right? Which is wholesaling, where you're talking to agents, where you're talking to sellers and trying to get these properties and then sell them off for. So that there is that shiny syndrome object. So it's amazing that y'all had that conversation.
Yeah.
And he kind of steered you right in the right direction, because many come into this industry and they don't know, right? And it's like, well, I'm going to try this, and then they get frustrated. I'm going to try this, and they get frustrated, right? So that's pretty cool how that came about. And
I just described the journey to a nurse. I was just talking with a nurse who's burnout and trying to figure out, where to go. And she's like, I've got this information on multifamily and single family and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, you know what? When you become a nurse, you don't become a dialysis nurse and a med-surg nurse and a critical care nurse and an ED nurse and a PIC nurse and all of these other nurses, right? You become one type of nurse and you focus on that and become a master of that. Then you might shift into another thing. That's how you got to look at this real estate journey. You can't take on wholesaling and fix and flip
Right.
and buy and hold and private money lending. You got to pick something, and it's okay to recognize after picking it and spending 90 days or whatever in that space and just giving it all your attention. It's okay to recognize this is not for me and move forward to the next thing. But you do need to give it a shot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to your point, right, you have to dedicate that energy to it, right? If you're going to
Yeah.
pick wholesaling, even within the wholesaling industry, there's so many niches within that. And even to your point, I heard you talk about your niche in private money lending, which we're going to touch on here in a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But even in private money lending, right, Pace did create the Gator community, and it's all about lending money in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So that's it's important whether you do wholesaling, whether you do even buy and holds, because there's so many different exit strategies, right?
Yeah.
But you have to pick and focus your energy on something specific, and then once you've gotten good, you could pivot into other things and say, okay, well now we can look at this, because probably you've built your team. Like now you have your team, your partnership with
Exactly.
Eric. So you guys
Mm-hmm.
probably can handle a little bit more than your niche, or look at other opportunities if y'all chose to. So that's amazing, man.
Yep, that's absolutely the goal. The goal is to, like you look at China Prakash, they're big lenders, right? And that's like 20% of their business. That's it.
Yeah,
It's not, it's only a small portion of the whole of what they do, which is fantastic. And the more that you get some systems and processes, and that's the goal, I think, for everybody, right? We want to get some systems and processes, hire people, give them a job, give
yeah,
people a job. This is part of why we get into this. Part of the reason I get into this. It's not just for me and my family. I want to give other
absolutely.
people opportunities.
Yeah, that's so powerful, man. What you say, giving other people opportunities. And I think initially, when we're in this journey, it's like we've, you have your own profession, right?
Yeah.
Your own career path, and likewise, right? And we know in our industry the value, because we're both in the healthcare industry. I'm in the
Mhm.
medical imaging space, but we see the value that we bring by providing solutions to people, right? Like helping
Yeah.
others, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether if you're in a leadership role, or whether you, like for me, if I fix a piece of equipment, right,
Mm-hmm.
the benefit that brings to to the hospital and to the imaging clinic
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And I think that's the purpose, right, of us being here, right? It's like we're here to bring value to others.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's powerful, man. Thanks for sharing
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And going back to the private money lending, because I can
Mm-hmm.
go on a tangent on purpose and stuff,
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm still trying to dig my.
Yep. Yep. I hear you.
But on the private money lending side, right? We both met at Abraham Gray and Alexis Mastermind. What were your takeaways as far as security and dealing, like, right? Because even in the private money lending space, we have the first position opportunities, second position opportunities, like gap opportunities. What where did you see, like your big takeaway was from that? Like, do you think like first positions are more secure, less money? Second position, what were your, like, some takeaways from?
For sure. Well, it's funny because first position inherently isn't necessarily more secure just simply because it's first position. It has to
Mm,
do with how much is in first position and how much equity is in the deal, right? 'Cause
good
I've
point.
seen deals where it's like, oh, this is first position, but actually it's like 100% of the equity is taken up. So it's really not secure because you just buy
Mm,
the property. And then the psychological profile of the deal is, well, the borrower's got zero skin in the game. He could walk away from it. It wouldn't be home, no harm, no foul. Then the lender's stuck with this asset, which, they can't sell for a profit because it's 100% leveraged. So, really important to make sure that you know the value of the property today, not the value of the property tomorrow. I'm actually vetting a deal today, and one of the cross collateral pieces they offered was a property that's demoed, but it's not fixed up.
mm.
And so they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be worth 111." I'm like, "That's not valuable to me today." You know
Today,
what I
yeah.
mean? So that's nice that you're offering the cross collateral, and I don't doubt that it will, someday become a nice piece of property. But right now, it's not a nice piece of property, and it's not valuable to me. It's still sitting at its, as is value of like, well under 100,000. And so And then the same thing, kind of the reverse happens. Sometimes people will, I had a deal that came to me that was like, they were looking for, I think there was $300,000 in rehab funds. So technically it could be held back, right? And we're going to give it out on draws. That's FYI, that's an important thing. Never give the rehab money up front. You always hold it back and you give it on draws. So the borrower has to do some work. They have to prove that they did the work. Very carefully prove that they did the work, not just pictures that they just shoot over to you today on their cell phone. No, you need to do like a video walkthrough. You start from the front of that property and walk all the way through. You see that address and you know that same property that you saw at the beginning of the deal, and they're not just spending money in some other property. Or you have an inspector go in and, third party view that property and validate the work they said was supposed to be done is done. But anyway, you withhold that rehab money and you give it out in draws. Okay, so the purchase price for this property was 1.4 million. The appraised value they said was 1.5. Do you already see a problem? So the purchase price is 1.4. You want to put in a bunch of rehab into it, but you're actually already acquiring it. And the HML, the hard money lender, was going to front the money for 1.4, which means that the hard money lender was being really generous and funding it at like a 93% loan to value. That just means that there's literally no skin in the game left for a second position unless you've got some significant cross collateral to make sure that the second position lender is in great shape.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, I love the way you brought up a few times cross collateral, right? Because that's how us as private money lenders, we ensure that we're secured, right? Because to your point, that property may not have enough equity or may not have enough there for if something were to happen, the hard money lender is the one that gets paid off first.
You bet.
Yeah, and then what happens to the private money lender's money? So that's why Justin keeps bringing up cross collateral, because you have to ensure you secure your money against another asset.
And if you have to sell the property, something happens to the borrower, even if it's non-nefarious, something just happens to them and they're unable to perform. Maybe they get an accident. They're in the hospital for 6 months. You're like, dang, we gotta get rid of this property. It's like hemorrhaging money. If you sold a property, 1.5 million, right? If you just figure in some general numbers for closing costs, right? So you got your realtor fee, and all of those things kind of figured in, you're probably somewhere around 9%, right?
Yeah.
So if you're selling it, if you can sell it at 1.5 million, right? And we remove the 9%, well, that's $135,000. That means that the total money you might get in your pocket is 1.3. So even the hard money lender is positioned to potentially lose money. They're taking a risk on this guy, so they must believe in him, which is great. But good for them. I don't. I don't know this guy from Adam, so I'm not ready to do that.
And I guess the other thing, you brought up the ARV, right? So it's important because ARV could be a little bit subjective as well, right? That they have there's different software, different tools that can calculate ARV, but then you have to kind of know the area and kind of understand the trend, right? So maybe my ARV could be a few $1,000s less or more, right? And maybe, but there's still that risk, right? It's like you really want to take that risk, even if we're off like $300,000.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And for that reason, Eric and I don't do a ton of fix and flips. We will, but we don't do a ton. And really, our primary focus is on these. We basically offer a bridge loan product, and it's something that is available kind of urgently. So it's great for somebody who. There's a few different scenarios where this is really quality tool to have in your tool belt. It's not for everyone because moving big, large amounts of money is expensive. So, our fee is definitely going to be more expensive than a hard money lender. And that's good to know up front, but it can be a great tool. So a great scenario, you might have a foreclosure that's going to auction, and just a few days, and the only way you're going to get that money is to come to somebody like us. We can fund something, in just a few days. As long as it's deep, right? We'll only fund up to a 70% loan to value, which means loan to today's present value, not philosophical future values. And so, there was great scenario. If you had a property, say, that's worth 700,000, right? In as is condition, you could prove that it's worth that much in as is condition. There's houses going all over the place for that much value, but this is a person who's got to get rid of this property. They hung on too long, and they're now up against the wire. They're like, okay, I'll let you have it for a steal of a deal, but you got to get it off of my record in the next 5 days, or no deal.
Right.
All right. So, maybe they'll let it go for 400,000, and we can pay cash for that for you. 400,000. You're super deep. We'll charge, depending on how long the loan. We typically average 15 to 30% flat fee that we're going to take as sort of a fee out of the deal. That's still cheaper than sharing the equity 50-50.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's,
so if
and
you
it's
did a partnership, you might have to share 50-50. We're not going to do that, but we're still going to take a big chunk, and you're still going to get a great deal. What does that end up working out to? 480,000 if you take a 20% fee or whatever. So you still got a $700,000 house for 480. Was it worth it? Yeah. Why not? You can refinance that thing, or you can even sell it, and
Right.
you still make good money. We had another deal that was actually, I think Eric's going to be talking a little bit more about it. We had a deal that just paid out, huge profit. It was a $1.2 million deal. It was somebody that was in a tight situation and they needed a solution quickly. And so we were able to offer that solution very quickly to them. It was costly, but it still offered the solution that kept their properties in their possession. And we actually leveraged it against three mansions. So we did 1.2 million, very deeply leveraged across those three mansions. We were sitting at about a 50% loan to value, and ultimately it paid a $228,000 return.
Wow, my friend. Congrats, man. That was a great deal there, man. Wait, I love the way you're saying, finding a solution, right, for a dedicated type of situation, right? Because to your point, fix and flips are great, but once you can hone down on that type of niche, dude, you're bringing something that not many can bring, right? Because they may not have that type of liquid cash right away. So that's amazing, man. Well done, well done. The other thing I was thinking about, as you were talking about that, is how you brought it up and you said, I just wanted to highlight it again, that 70% as is value, right? Because it's so important, because you're almost positioning yourself where if something were to go wrong, right, and you could just fire sale that, right?
Correct. That's the goal. Yeah. You got to make sure that you're in you think about, as a lender, our bread and butter comes from basically selling money. And when the money gets tied up and it's no longer accessible and it's tied up in an asset for an extended period of time and whatnot, and you can't get it out or whatever, as long as that money is tied up, if it's not making you money, you're losing money. So you need to be able to get rid of the asset. It can't be sitting. We've had some interesting offerings, and if we were, maybe much higher net worth and wanted to just let our money sit for a while, they might be worthy offerings. We've had people offer like equity in a business. Well, I can't liquidate a business in a couple of months or whatever. I can't fire sale that. It might be valuable, but it's not going to be valuable to me quickly.
Right.
I need something that I can fire sale fairly quickly if something goes wrong. And that's always got to be the way you think as a lender. And you got to assume that something might go wrong. And so if you're sitting at a 70% loan to value, you're sitting with a 30% equity margin, so that if there's additional costs, legal fees, anything that might stack up in there, you're still going to walk away not just with your principal, because I'm not not in the business of just preserving cash that's in our pocket for 6
Right.
months. We're in the business of making the money off of that cash.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to fire sale it and make your money, plus a profit, right?
Yeah, I love that. And so one thing I wanted to highlight, right, because private money lenders, hard money lenders, there is that thing, right, where like you'll have those wholesalers, right, or investors that they'll go to hard money lenders. But one thing I wanted to highlight was that Justin mentioned how speed, right, the time
Mhm.
it takes for them to fund something like this.
Yeah.
That's the big advantage of us private money lenders, right? When there's an opportunity, there's a need, and we need to provide a solution. We just have to do our own underwriting, right, to make sure that, like what Justin said, 70% has his value, and make sure the money's secured that way. And
Mhm.
the other part is understanding which state you may be dealing with as well, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
yeah, you may not want to do, even if it's a sweet deal, you may want to stay from a few states.
Yeah. We don't lend in California and New York for sure. And there's a few that we would have to evaluate on a case by case basis for sure.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that, man.
Yeah.
Man, and then I think just to round it up, right? It was exciting how you talked your journey from Jamil Danji and then eventually joining Gator. You put a pause, right? You put a break,
Mhm.
and then you digged in, and now you're funding. Like I think you said over how long? How much have you funded already? Over a few
Well, I
million
mean,
with your partner.
collectively between us, uh, we'd have to just say millions because
Yeah, that's
I don't know
awesome.
what the total number is right now. We're
Yeah,
we're
congrats.
evaluating a $2.6 million deal and another $5 million deal right now. So we'll see.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's exciting, always seeing our growth journey as we begin through this, right? Because I focused on wholesaling for about 4 months, and I was able to get some two deals, but I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? After I attended Abraham's mastermind,
Yeah.
and Alexis is like, oh, private money lending is it's a good avenue,
Yeah.
and when you have resources that you could use, right,
Mhm.
either you use other people's experience like Abraham Gray and Alexis. I know
Yeah.
you mentioned that, using their experience, right,
Absolutely. Yeah.
to be able to learn from people like that. It's great.
And I would also say this too, right? When you get started into real estate, you'll see that every, sort of master of this or guru, so to speak, of this has their specific bent, right? You go to Ryan Pineda. What is Ryan Pineda going to tell you? He's like, you got to wholesale and you got to fix and flip. And
Yeah.
then you buy and hold to build your wealth. You go to Jamil, his primary focus is going to be entirely on wholesaling because that's really his claim to fame. He'll still tell you that you got to be buying properties because that is the only way that you truly build wealth. Um, you go to Jerry Norton. What's he going to tell you? Fix and flip. You got to fix and flip, guys.
Yeah.
Go to Pace, and he's almost exclusively buy and hold. Yeah, he'll teach you how to do the wholesale. You got to have some active income. Bottom line is, anything you do, there is going to have to be some form of active income for at least a period of time. You're not going to. Nothing in real estate is going to immediately retire you from work and give you entirely passive income. There's going to be work here.
Yeah.
The form of active income is the thing that I think people don't debate maybe enough. Like everybody looks at it and they're like, well, you're going to have to pick either wholesale or fix and
Mm.
flip. Those are your only two options. Well, I beg to differ. I think there's really another option, and that other option is private money lending. And you don't have to be rich to private money lend and begin to make this into a full-time gig.
Mm.
You know, um, traditional private money lending, right, where you're lending maybe at a 12% rate, yeah, it's gonna take a lot longer to build up, but you can fill specific voids and niches like what Eric and I are doing and make a bigger return. And yeah, you could turn this into your form of active income. And then from your active income, you begin to buy and hold real estate, right?
Right.
Actually, what Eric does, he lends. That's his primary thing. He gets huge chunks of return, and
Mm.
then he offsets the taxes by buying real estate
Buying real
or
estate.
private
Yeah.
money partnering with people who need capital. And so that's something I plan to do as well. As I make more money in this, I'm going to be buying up real estate, um, and hopefully escape the entire uh, wholesale track. I
Exactly.
really don't want to do that. Um, And so I think there are other avenues. You don't 100% have to do the whole wholesale route as sort of like that's the only way you get to the buy and hold.
Right. No,
But
that's
you
an
do have to
excellent
have some
point.
sort of active income. I've seen some
Yes.
people out there saying, well, you can do buy and hold exclusively, but the only way you're making the active income on the buy and hold is that you're borrowing it from somebody. Most of the time, it's a private money lender. And I see people doing that practice. I'm not a big fan of that because at the end of the day, you're over leveraging an asset.
Yes.
Isn't enough equity securing the private money lender. You're benefiting because you got an active income. You got paid to get the deal because you took an acquisition fee. Is it immoral? No. But is it safe? No, it's not really
No.
a safe practice because you're still going to end up having to raise capital again to pay those lenders off, and you're going to have to keep kicking that can down the road over and over again, and all the while your lender's really not secure.
Yeah, to your point, I've seen some of those deal structure as well, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's those are risky loans, and but to each his own, right? Some people are
Yeah.
okay with putting $20,000 down, and it's like, okay, well, that's just if I get a great return, great, and
Yeah.
or some others,
If that's your cup of tea, go for it. But I think it's important for people to know
exactly,
that it's a risky loan and be okay with that, rather than think that it's a
it's secured.
double-digit return
Hmm.
backed by real estate when it's really not backed by the real estate. It's only backed by the integrity of that borrower.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, because that's exactly it, right? That you have to educate yourself enough to ensure,
Sure.
how much truly are you secured? Because to
Mm-hmm.
your point, if something happens to that borrower, yeah, you're not going to get paid because the appreciation of properties don't go up that fast.
Yeah. And think of it this way too. Every person who's building a massive portfolio rapidly off of only private money lending and they don't take any money out of their own pockets, which is very popular. I get it. And it can be a really powerful way to build. But if you don't have an active income source and you're building that off of the backs of the private money lenders, if you've acquired a massive portfolio, especially if you're doing subject to strategies, you have no equity. So you're actually worth
Hmm.
nothing. Your net worth did not go up.
Yep.
All you did was your debt went up, but you didn't actually increase a net worth yet. It could come.
It could come.
As
Yeah.
you get to pay down, or it could snowball into a massive chain reaction of defaults.
Yeah. And that's
That's the danger. So
danger right
good to
there.
know. It's good to know walking in eyes wide open and understand what you're walking into and determine whether or not that's the kind of loan you want to be involved in, because it's really not a loan at that point. That's asset backed.
Yeah. Man, brother, I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate this conversation, man. I value your time. I think
Yeah.
we're gonna be wrapping it up, yo. It's I've been excited, man, to catch up, man, and I know you have your own YouTube and podcast channel going on
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Nursing Real Wealth, is that
Yep.
right? Yeah.
There we
Oh,
go.
there it is.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. So if y'all need to check out his content, he actually had the opportunity to interview our mentor, Pace Morby.
Yes.
I checked out the episode. It's amazing. Y'all need to go check it out. I'll put the details on the comments below here on my channel. Definitely connect with my friend Justin, and hope to see you soon, man. I need to either go to your side of town, or you need to come back to Atlanta.
I know, right? I know. I'm definitely aching to come visit the Atlanta people. That's a great crew. You have an incredible crew. We got a great Michigan crew too, but it's actually quite far away from me, so I don't get to go see them very often. But yeah, phenomenal crew down there in Atlanta as well.
Awesome, brother. Any other tips, advice for people that are into private money lending that you'd like to share with us before we wrap it up?
If they aren't a private money lender yet,
if they're maybe in their journey of, okay, what is private money lending?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. I would just say keep networking like crazy in the space where people are borrowing and people are lending. It doesn't have to be just a private money lender that you network with. network with borrowers and start to get a feeling for the types of people that are needing capital, and what their deal structures are like. And the other thing I would say is just don't dive in because you feel like you're missing out.
Yes.
Don't do that. If you feel like you are missing out, you are at a high risk of making a very stupid decision. I've seen a lot of people get into that sort of FOMO, fear of missing out, and then they put money into a deal that's not secure, only to end up losing. So when you fear losing out, you actually are at a higher risk of losing out. You know,
Well said, my friend.
so I would just say that you need to be really careful, because if you stay yourself and you are patient and you wait for the right timing and you wait for, okay, this deal actually penciled out, this makes sense. And I got this great buddy who's not lost any money in private money lending. I'm just going to run it by him really quick. When he's
Exactly.
like, yeah, you know what? This looks like a good deal, buddy. Why don't you, consider it, think on it, and maybe this is the deal for you. When you've done that, then you have a great chance of replicating success after success.
I love that, man. Thanks for that advice, man. Because that, y'all, please listen. Don't get that FOMO. Take your time, learn, network, and most importantly, always have another set of eyes.
Yeah.
Right, run it by somebody else that's not part of the deal.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, reach out to one of us in the community or somebody that has done a transaction before, just so they could double check us.
This community tends to be very transparent too. So it's okay to ask somebody, what's been your greatest success? What's one of your worst failures? Have you lost money ever? And I think most people would be willing to say, yeah, I actually have lost money, and this is how I did it. Like this is what happened. So learn from those opportunities. I've had several people, I won't name names, but I've had several people share their stories, and those stories kept me from some problems, because I understand, okay, that makes sense. Okay, now they've unpackaged that, they see why they've lost that money. And so learn from the folks that have lost money too. But I will say this: if you meet up with somebody who's lost money more than they've earned money, that may not be a good person to mentor with.
That's true. Oh man, I love that, Justin. Man, appreciate it. Thanks for taking Thursday afternoon here with me, evening, man. I love the conversation, and I'll be putting your comments and your Instagram, YouTube channel down here in the comments. So we'll be hopefully we have another part 2 conversation. We'll dig into probably some deals. I would love that opportunity to chat.
Sure. Yeah. We also, FYI, we do have office hours that we do every Friday at 11 o'clock. Eric and I do it as long as my W-2 allows. He will always be there. Although tomorrow they are canceled because of community camp. Yeah. He is busy with community camp. So,
yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, brother. Appreciate your time.
All right. Take care.
Peace, guys. All right, hold on, brother. Let me end the recording here and I'll edit this out. That was fun, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
No.